Okay, so doing a quick video, a very organic, not too much editing, just a sit down and talk. And the entire theme of the video will be a bit about anyone out there very lost, having all the struggles that I had, moving up to the area that I'm in now. And generally, just talking a bit about my story, what I learned on the way to the best of my knowledge. And hopefully someone clicking into this video can watch it, see if anything applies to them and if they can grab something out of it. So it's a one take. If I mess up, I mess up, but I will probably do more in the future, which is a bit more polished. So starting off with all the way to the beginning, going through a bit of the childhood and then doing big hops over to late teens and then starting to break it down year by year, leading up to the point today where I'm today 23 years old. So it shouldn't be that much. So childhood, I grew up in a city in Sweden called Norrköping, and specifically a little area called Hageby. And this place is not like a ghetto as you would imagine it be. It's not as brutal as some other ghettos in the rest of the world, but it's a ghetto nevertheless, and one of the more kind of worst places in Sweden you could be. And growing up in this place as a kid, I luckily had parents that kept me out of anything that went on the streets outside. And what that did to me was that I could look at the entire situation from the outside. I could look at it as you would look through your window, looking out at people and observing it from a safe area. So it's a different being in all of that and messing around with it versus being taken back from it and looking at it from an isolated place. And that's what I did, and thanks to my parents, I was fortunate enough to have it set up that way. So I looked at everything that went on in my area, all the criminality, selling drugs, everything with guns, violence, everything that went on outside of where I lived. And I had no shortage of examples for what not to do and what not to become. And when I look at it from my position through the window, as just a metaphor, I could see exactly the future I did not want to have. And I had a bit of, not as much, but I had a bit of a path that I can look at and say, okay, this is not the path I'm taking, right? There's a different path somewhere. I cannot see it. I don't know where it is and how it looks, but I know that this one is not it, but there's something else. And growing up, I was a lot into sports. So starting with soccer, that didn't work out, tested some other things like track and field, played some guitar. And then I finally found basketball around when I was 10 years old and really stuck for basketball. And basketball was everything between 10 to 18. That was my everything. And playing basketball developed this competitive nature in me, or at least unlocked it or brought it forward, that it was so extreme and I could feel it. And I believe also that was driving my ambitions in basketball to be the best, to be the Michael Jordan, to be the Kobe Bryant. I wanted to be these guys, right? As unrealistic someone watching this might sound to you, but I wanted to be the next Michael Jordan. That was as a kid growing up in this very toxic place. I looked at my heroes, which were Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Derrick Rose, all of these great basketball players at that time. And these was my heroes. And when I compared my heroes at that time, when I was a kid, compared to everything I saw on the streets, the contrast was so extreme. So my path there was a path that started to be paved that was more in line with what my heroes did, right? The basketball players that I looked up to. So I had this path, which was criminality, drugs, guns, and then we had the path of basketball, right? That was a path that I found. So all of these heroes, they paved the path for me, and I saw, right, there's money, there's glory, there's competitive environment. It's everything that I really want in life. So I'm gonna go for this. So basketball became something for me that was it took over my life. And for me, basketball was a way for me to say, okay, I'm gonna become the best basketball player in the world, and become rich, and get me and my family out of this place. I had all of those, dreams that a kid has. But between 10 and 18, of course, a lot of things happened. That's 8 years going into the teens and starting to exit the teens. There was a lot of stuff that went on inside of this period. One of them being me just starting to develop. There was depression, there was addictions, there was a lot of things that didn't go that well. And maybe touching on depression first. So depression was somewhere at, I would say, the later years of my teens, leading all the way up to post-teens, and up to 21, 22, somewhere around there. But depression started to get on to me, and as a young kid, I did not understand what this overwhelming feeling was. It was just horrible. So I was an unexperienced kid, experienced all of these negative emotions, and I had no idea where they came from or why they were there, but it was just soul crushing. So I had to navigate around why I'm feeling this, why is this happening to me, etc., etc. Some things that you do when you're feeling depressed, and many out there has been there too. But being now here where I am, and reflecting back at everything that happened during those years, I started seeing some patterns. So I would start to see, the addiction that I had to screen time, so phones and entertainment, watching whatever you would watch, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok wasn't, yet created at that time. So I had these addictions, and these addictions led to me having sleep deprivation. So I was up very late, just attached to games, attached to all of these things, which led to sleep deprivation. So sleep deprivation was a huge thing at that time for me mentally. So during these 8 years, of course, school was involved in that. I can't remember ever getting to school in time. So I would have, of course, these negative emotions, and I believe that I used these addictions to distract myself, or vice versa. Maybe these addictions caused depression. So I was up late nights just playing games, watching YouTube, whatever. And being up until 3 in the morning, when I have school, I have to wake up and go to at 6 in the morning. It was never realistic for me to ever get to school in time. So I had this entire period in my life where I never got to school in time either. And even if I got in time to school, it was kind of an inside joke that, it was very apparent that I'm not the guy that comes to school in time. And this also took a toll on me. So not only had I the screen addiction, I had the sleep deprivation, I was depressed, but I also had the pressure of school and never being able to get in time to school. But then also I have so many things that cascade from that. So never understanding why I'm so low on energy, never understanding why I have so much brain fog. Everything was just so messy in my head. And I had all of these things, and being, just going through the journey of growing up, being a kid, I didn't understand where all of these things came from. I never would have guessed, right? I have never read about self-improvement. I never read about the importance of sleep, the importance of, the dangers of screen time. All of these things came very late in my life. So all the habits they had leading up to that point was a mystery to me. The mystery was, where does these bad things come from? And I didn't correlate them to all the bad things I was doing. So depression just crushing and crushing and crushing. And I had that day in and day out for years. I had soul-crushing depression for long periods of time. I'm talking months and years on end, day in and day out. And I slowly started getting out of this depression. And I believe basketball was a big reason for why I was successful in dragging myself out of that situation, because I had something else to put my mind on. And I spent an insane amount of time on the basketball courts. So I would spend time on the courts every day, all the way to night. I would spend time on the court until someone kicked me off. And I'm talking about days where they were in school, but I would be on the court until the the security guards of the court would come and kick me out. And even with them, I would negotiate being there a bit longer going out the back door after closing hours. And during school time, I would grab some time during recess and hop over to the nearby court, setting up some cones, doing drills, working on basketball. So basketball was everything for me during these 8 years, as I struggled with depression, as I struggled with these things I didn't understand at the time, which is screen addiction, sleep deprivation, all of these bad habits that I had. And I struggled through all of this and started to learn a bit about depression and learning a bit more about the issues I had with my phone and the screen time and also games. And there came a time where I completely just shifted, but I'll get to that in a moment. So I'm now 18 and I'm just quitting basketball. So I'm 18, I'm quitting basketball and saying this is it, it's done. And the reason for that is I didn't see the path that I saw when I was a kid in basketball wasn't there anymore. It was kind of erased out. I was 18, hadn't gotten anywhere as far as I should have for me to see real success and say, this is a viable option. And growing up where I grew up, there was no other options. It was sports or it was criminality, at least in the kind of small area I lived in. And for me, it's either sports or it's the thing that I've known my entire life, school. So going to school, university, and you get a job. That was the other option. And me messing up the entire school kind of time that I had, never getting in time to school, not taking it seriously because I put all focus on basketball, even that future looked bleak, where I would educate myself, get a high education and go into some kind of job that was high paying and that I would like. But I quit basketball at 18 and said, this is it, let me try something else. And prior to that, around 17, 16, I discovered, the first signs of online entrepreneurship on YouTube, I believe it was. And there was this day trader, this guy that, had some how-tos on day trading, trading stocks and that type of thing. So when I was 16, 18, I discovered the entire world of day trading. And already around 16, 17, the basketball thing started to look bleak. And I knew that sometime in the future, I might just quit and do something different. So I started looking into this day trading thing. And from, I believe, when I was 17, I started day trading in a simulation. So just training, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. And eventually when I turned 18, that's when I was allowed to trade, right? In Sweden, we have these regulations, until you're 18, you're not allowed to open a trading account. So I hit 18, I opened a trading account and I started trading right away for $2,000. And this $2,000 got blown like within 2 months. So I'm set back $2,000 now. And that was my first taste of online entrepreneurship, right? A failure straight out of the kind of gates. $2,000 back. Now I had to figure out how to gain back those $2,000. So I started doing different things. So being in the day trading algorithm on YouTube, I started getting other stuff like drop shipping. Now this is my second kind of insight into online entrepreneurship. So day trading, and now it's drop shipping. So I started reading up what's drop shipping, how to do that. And I just went for it. Just like with the trading, I just went for this thing, which is drop shipping. Started building a site, starting sourcing products that I could sell through the site. And it was the most scrappy setup imaginable. So I didn't have a proper site, proper processing, payment processing, proper anything, proper product sourcing either. So the entire source of my products was really sketchy. And that set me back a couple $100 too for hosting and that type of stuff. But now I'm left there with a failed drop shipping kind of thing. So I had this entire failed drop shipping thing too. So now I'm set back $2,000 on the day trading. I went into drop shipping, that completely failed. But in midst of creating this website in drop shipping, I started to get the idea that this thing is not easy. Me creating the website was the biggest headache I experienced. So I started thinking, if I'm having this big of a trouble creating a simple e-com website, there has to be a big market of people that have the same issue too. So that was my first, market fit, product, service, brainstorm I've had. So I started looking into that and how other agencies in my area are creating websites. I started looking into the agency model and how to do all of that. And my first entry into the agency model was web, like web development, web design. That was the only thing I knew about when it came to agencies at that age. And I'm now about 19. So I actually started an agency with my neighbor at that time. He was a programmer. I was, learning design, web design, and we started to build some WordPress websites. So I designed them, pushed them to him, and he developed them. And the entire setup was very scrappy. It was really bad. The websites that came out was really, really bad. But after some time, I discovered a tool called Webflow, and I started to discover this entire no-code movement. So being able to build web application and websites without any code required. And I learned this tool, Webflow, and we went separate ways, me and my neighbor, and I started doing everything solo. And I would design and develop sites myself using Webflow, and started to DMing a lot of people, starting getting into sales, getting my first free clients and then my first paid clients. And now I'm really into entrepreneurship, and I started as a freelancer then. So I'm just a web freelancer doing design and development. And I'm now, talking with clients, just figuring out this entire agency model. And to give context, I didn't watch any videos or read anything on how to run an agency or how to even be a freelancer. Like everything I did, from the trading stuff all the way up to, me starting this web freelance thing, was completely DIY. So I did everything by just figuring it out as I went, which was a horrible way to do it, as I'll describe in a moment. But there was a lot of painful years during that period. When I was 19, 20, I also enrolled into university because just to keep myself having that plan B. And quickly I noticed that this entire agency thing started to work out. So money started rolling in, clients started rolling in. So I just quit university and went and did that. I also had the sales job that had the same situation. So I started seeing that the agency side or the freelance website started to actually generate some money. So I quit this one, the sales job, and started doing the freelance thing full time. But long story short, there was this entire process of learning freelancing and then learning the difference between a glorified freelancer, and then an agency. So there was this entire period between 2019 and 2023 where I did just freelance. I did everything on my own, and I was dabbling between being a freelancer and a glorified freelancer, aka agency, and one-man agency, and I would brand myself as an agency. And then in the beginning of 2030, I said, okay, it's time for me to scale this and make an agency of it. So that's what I did in the mid 2023. Said, I'm gonna scale this and I'm gonna do things a lot differently. 2030, in the beginning of 2030, that was also the year my entire life shifted, because now I had let go of a long going thing, which was my pride of doing things alone. So all the way from my youth up to when I was 23 or 22, I had this thought that I had to do everything on my own, right? There was some pride in, if I let someone else teach me how to do something, it's not as big of an achievement of doing anything, right? If someone else just shows me how to do it. Retarded way of seeing it, but I changed that in 2023 and started learning from other people, starting to reach out, starting to search for some answers to my questions, and starting following certain people, online entrepreneurs. And at this time, personal branding was just kicking off and becoming huge. And I had all the inspiration in the world to look at and learn from when it comes to all of these things, agency model, and so on and so on. And also personal branding. So just to get back to where I was, follow the thread, I said, I must scale this thing to a proper agency. So I started to change things around and starting to build a team. So in the beginning, it was just me. Then within no time, there was me and another person. Then with no time, it was me and two other people. And then that went to 3, and now it's at 4. And It's looking to be 10 by the end of Q1, and we're growing really, really fast. And it's only been about 6, 7, 8 months. And currently, I've relocated from Sweden, the small town town called Hageby, over to the great Dubai, the capitalist center of every entrepreneur. And currently, everything is going really well. Everything is going superb, and I'm learning a lot of stuff, and I have changed a lot as a person. But there are a lot of teachings, if we go back on the story, that I think a lot of people out there would benefit from. So starting off, I grew up in a place that was very bleak. There wasn't any inspiration to look at. Honestly, the only inspiration that you had to look at was your parents, because your parents were hardworking. My first heroes was my mom and my dad, right? I saw how much they were working day in and day out, and that kind of developed this work ethic in me. That as I saw them working day in and day out, it started seeping into me, this work ethic, And that was my first heroes, but there was nothing else to look up to, no inspiration. It was just bleak, criminality, shootings, drugs. It was very, very bleak. And this environment shaped me a lot, but there was nothing to look up to other than things on YouTube, right? The inspiration that we had, the Nike commercials, the Michael Jordans, the Mike Tysons, this was the people that I looked up to and kind of modeled my character after. Athletics, I tried it, I did my best, I got to a good spot, then I got stuck and nothing happened. So there was my first kind of grand big failure. My dreams to become a basketball player just went out the window. Depression. I had soul-crushing depression for years on ends. And when I say years, I don't mean it was jumping months. No, it was every other day at least I had this soul-crushing depression, waking up every morning and going to bed with this soul-crushing depression. And this went on for like months on end, years on end. My first entry into entrepreneurship was grand failure. So I first lost $2,000 on trading, and then I lost a lot of money on wanting to build an e-commerce. Then I started my freelance career building web, and at the same time I started another e-com, which again set me back $2,000. So all the way from when I started at 18 to when I was 21, 22, I made no money. I was set back a lot. I was starting to lose my mind. I was starting to really, to go through all of this, you had to build that grinder mindset. And going through that on years on end, it was not like I had vacations where I would go to Marbella and just relax. No, I was in that town in Sweden, in my room, from 18 to 22, 23, just working. That's X amount of years where you're doing nothing but grinding, nothing. No vacations, no this or that, nothing but grind. And that started to wear down on the psyche. So yeah, also the entire agency and web career, ups and downs, a lot of headaches, a lot of issues. So I had this entire track record of losses, of issues, of problems, of things going wrong and wrong and wrong, and then wrong again, and then wrong again. And then sometimes a win, but then we go back a couple of steps, and then we go back to a couple of wins. But the entire lesson of this story is that today I'm living in Dubai, in UAE, living a good life. I have good financials. Everything is going great. I have an amazing team in Loudface, amazing people that I work with every single day. I have another startup that I'm working on, again, with a great team and great people I like to meet every day. My health is all-time best. Everything is really, really good. And the entire point of this video, and I could structure it better and I could redo it, but I just wanted to do one take and post this, is that no matter what situation you're currently finding yourself in, if you're in that hood somewhere in the world, right? Whether you're in a favela or in a hood in the US, or if you're struggling in Sweden, in Rosengård, or wherever in the world you are, there's a way, right? There's a path out. You know what path not to take. That's the path everyone else in your neighborhood took. But there's another path for you. Athletics, I failed in athletics. So a lot of people out there, soccer players, football players, swimmers, whatever it is, are failing, right? You go into something, doesn't work out, and you should just put your hands up eventually and say, you know what, I can take this failure. I will not give up, however. Let me go and conquer something else. What else? Failure after failure after failure after failure in entrepreneurship. So when I went into that, just an endless kind of list of failures that I went through. So just leading up to that point, I had this entire list of setbacks and things that made it look like from the outside that I will not make it. Right? I will be one, just another statistic. I would be another one getting stuck in my hometown, working in a local shop, whatever it might be, become a criminal, whatever the other path was. That was the only thing I had. And then I had all of these failures in athletics and entrepreneurship. And then I also had this company that started showing, signs of success, Loudface, my agency. Even that had huge setbacks and huge losses and, a lot of issues and problems. So day in and day out for the last couple of years, for the last five years, has been just, pain and more pain, and then some more pain. And the pain never stopped until recently. The recent couple of 3 months maybe, has been really, really nice, safe. Like my move over to Dubai, UAE, again, haven't told anyone about this either, but I was on the brink of becoming homeless for 3 months on end. Like every end of the week, I said, now I become homeless. I was packing my bags, going out and saying, this is the time I'm starting to live outside. And so even up to this point, things has been like on the edge. So, and the main lesson, if anything, out of this video, and I'll probably do a lot more videos in the future, breaking down all of these things and kind of share the really valuable lessons in each of these categories. But the main lesson from this is that no matter how much failure or how bad cards you're dealt, no matter what the situation might be with you, it doesn't mean that you will end up, or you will be stuck in that place, or that will lead down a dark path, or that will do this or that, right? It doesn't mean that that's it for you, right? So depression doesn't mean that's end of you, right? Growing up or being brought up in a toxic place doesn't mean that that's the end of you. A countless amount of setbacks and losses and failures doesn't mean the end of you. And when you finally succeed with something, and even that starts showing signs of failure, doesn't mean that that's the end of you. If anything, after every setback, you look back and said, okay, I just went through all of that. This one thing that I'm going through right now, I could just put it on the list of things that I have surpassed or worked around. And you start building this entire list, the entire vault of things that have tried to slow you down, that has been a setback, and it becomes like a trophy showcase. Like you look at these things and say, I went through each and everything of these. So anything that you throw at me now, I can just look at my trophy case and say, this is nothing compared to what I have here. So you become more resilient to whatever life throws your way or whatever happens. But the first thing is that giving up is not supposed to be even an option. It shouldn't be something you think about or take seriously. There's a lot of things that happened in my life, but giving up was never one of those things. You can look at basketball as giving up, but that was also just me being realistic and saying that I have a set amount of time as an athlete, right? So I started to weigh the odds, and the odds spoke for themselves. But today, I've learned a ton of biohacking, on the edge of becoming a quote-unquote specialist or expert on biohacking. Loudface has seen a lot of success and we're growing aggressively. My confidence has grown immensely. Not that I haven't had confidence before, otherwise I wouldn't have done all of these things that I've done before, but it's a different type of confidence where I can go and do things and know that there's a high probability of success because I'm doing it. Right? That type of confidence. Having another startup on the side and knowing that this might be a success. That type of confidence where you can go and venture into something and say there will probably a big chance of success on this thing. There's then a ton of other things that I've learned and that has become a lesson. But if anything in this video, look at me as a case study of is possible if you're going through any of these things. If you're living or grew up in a tough environment, if you are going through depression, if you've gone through failures, whatever the thing is, look at this as a case study of someone that has gone through a lot of things and then ended up on the other side where the grass is greener. And for example, my life for a lot of people would be Disneyland. So there's people out there with, vastly more difficult lives. And mine, if anything, is a privilege compared to those. And try to look at it in a similar lens. You're not supposed to compare suffering. But if you do, you will get a different perspective of what you're going through versus what you could have gone through, right? And also look at other people. I don't have the worst story out there. There are people out there with a lot worse stories that have achieved a lot more than I have at this time. So there's a lot of case studies out there showing what's possible just if you don't give up, right? If you see that there's another day coming and you just have to pass this day and take one day at a time. And just keep pushing, whatever you're doing, just keep pushing, right? So that's all I wanted to do. I will talk about this video. I will break down this video and structure it more in the upcoming ones. So do subscribe and leave a comment if there's anything you want me to dive more detailed into out of all of these things that I've spoken about, and I will do another video about that. But I really do hope that this helped someone out there that might click on this video and go through some of the similar things that I went through. But yeah. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching, and it would be appreciated if you left a like and subscribed, and I'll continue pushing more of these videos. Thank you so much.